Strong data and analytical strategies that create insights in real time will continue to power smart decisions in a timely fashion, which in turn will separate winning companies and organizations from the rest of the pack. With respect to smart strategies, we are pleased to have with us our guest of honor, Mr. Abrar Hasan, CEO National Foods Limited, to highlight how data and analytics is viewed through a CEO's lens. Mr. Hasan is the Chief Executive Officer of National Foods Limited, a company that produces over 250 different products marketed both in Pakistan and exported to 40 countries worldwide. He has been serving at numerous capacities at National Foods and has led the development of a comprehensive human resource management system and introduced an international marketing infrastructure. Recognizing the vital role of information technology in business development, Mr. Hasan brought about an IT revolution in the company. In February 2003, National Foods became the first local food company to put in an ERP system, Scala, which was subsequently upgraded to the SAP ERP system in a record 6 months deployment. Excuse me. Mr. Hasan is a staunch supporter of positive environment, social, and governance practices. An adult literacy program for women was started at National Foods as early as in the year 2000. He spearheaded the development of a sustainability strategy, which focused on responsible business practices and a triple bottom line. He's a board member on a number of companies and associations, and has been the recipient of numerous accolades, including the Marketing Excellence Awards 2008 from the Marketing Association of Pakistan. We welcome on stage Mr. Abrar Hasan.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for the very kind and I think a bit too elaborate introduction. Actually, I think nonetheless much appreciated. I would like to thank ICAP for inviting me here today amongst such wonderful professionals. I think it was a treat to listen to all of them, starting from Seema Kamil in terms of her vast experiences and the way that she has actually held various leadership roles and how she has evolved. It was wonderful to listen to the panel, actually. I think much of what I actually had to say in terms of the points that I had jotted down through my evolutionary journey of taking the company where it is today, most of my thunder was stolen by this wonderful panel, actually. So I think they went through this entire technical aspect of data analytics. And then, of course, the tone was started by Seema Kamil herself, actually. So nothing much was left for me to actually say after that. So the thing that really filters out when you talk about data and analytics through a CEO's lens, I think it becomes more strategic in nature. So assuming that all mid-sized companies and above, choti companies ki main baat nahi karunga because obviously they are still struggling through various existential aspects of putting in the right infrastructure, but assuming that all mid-level companies and giant companies actually, when they progress, they have actually managed these assets of technology, the infrastructure which drives the data collection, storage, and then later on mining that for various decision making. Actually, it only thing that is really left for the CEO to really to do is to actually manage that data and look at the data to take strategic decisions. When strategy comes about, I think the only aspect that one must realize in order to foster within an organization or a company the aspect of taking decisions by using data is to actually establish a culture of actually recognizing the usage of data. And when we talk about fostering a culture, which is extremely important for a CEO, because that's what actually shapes the destiny in terms of harnessing the growth or converting the potential which is out there, whether that be for local markets or domestic markets or international avenues. But these are the kind of learnings which are then exposed to you where you need to take certain strategic decisions to thrive. And when we talk about culture, then it becomes actually a human resource question. And when it becomes a human resource question, and this was actually addressed in the panel and I was listening very keenly to this aspect, is we need to talk about developing competencies. So for a data-driven organization to thrive, we need to have a culture, and that culture has to be based on continuously improving the skill set and the competencies. So that's why I say it becomes a human resource problem. So today, interestingly, this entire event, which is being organized, is about ICAP offering that. Is actually ICAP recognizing the aspect of providing this data analytics mentorship program, and to talk about what are the kinds of competencies which are required to foster and make this culture thrive and make organizations very dynamic. So interestingly enough, I'm looking at this standee right here, and the key word actually is upskill, right? And I'd like to actually make an important point. I think we've all been, in the last 2.5, 3 years, been through this worst pandemic of COVID, which has actually altered the lives of people tremendously. But what COVID has actually taught us, it taught us new ways of actually carrying on with our businesses. You clearly saw technology being used to thrive. Organizations, in fact, actually most of the organizations actually produced very good results during COVID. So there were a lot of learnings actually which came about during the COVID. But one such learning actually was that business is not going to be as usual anymore. Another learning that has come about actually is that we need to do much, much more with much, much less. And based on these paradigms, I think technology actually becomes the ultimate focus in helping companies pivot and transition to newer markets and newer avenues for not only survival aspects, but also to find out new niches so that they can actually thrive on this aspect. So, companies जब evolve करती हैं, तो एक assumption ये होता है कि आपने ये सारी चीज़ें जो हैं ये कर ली हुई हैं और आप इस डेटा को सही तरीके से यूज़ कर रहे हैं. हमने ये देखा है कि जो most of the companies actually have done this well, most of the data, and at least I can say within my own organization, that despite all this kind of infrastructure being available, at best probably my throughput is only 30%. And incidentally, actually I did some research into some global companies, and incidentally this is the same number actually that comes out. So there's tremendous room for improvement. But horizon change हो रहा है. From a CEO's perspective, actually horizon जो है वो change हो रहा है. और वो ये हो रहा है कि despite having an infrastructure, most of the data is still pulled. Most of the data is still pulled within an organization. Now, Ale mentioned very nicely because he's the closest industry that I can relate to, because we're both from the same FMCG industry. The aspect of forecasting, the aspect of FP&A, the aspect of BI tools, ये सारी अच्छी companies में exist करते. So there's not much I can actually say over here in terms of के हम क्या करें. Khurshid actually specifically asked me, she said, "Oh, Abrar, I want you to showcase national food." There's nothing I can talk about because there were much more brilliant companies sitting here actually, and they talked about their experiences. Pretty much we're all doing the same thing. So we need to take a look at the future of how things are actually evolving. So when we talk about the future is not going to be about pulling data, but actually data being pushed to you. Because now on the horizon, and especially post-COVID actually, is that we're looking at more and more usage of AI, and we're looking at now very, very advanced algorithms which do basically all the analytics for you. So there is going to be a time, and rather I would say that in very, very large companies, I think the prime example being very successful companies like Google, you can see the very vast usage of AI and very advanced algorithms where they have uncovered various niches, or rather, as we call in consumer marketing terms, various lateral markets actually, where they've squeezed every bit of penny actually out and maximizing their revenues. So I think the future is all about these advanced analytics which are going to be based on the assumption that you as a company actually have gone through the evolution and you've done everything correctly. So it's no longer going to be about ERPs. I think, in fact, the dichotomy over here today actually, or rather the complexity is that we've got too many data sources within a company. And I think this was also talked about. I heard somebody actually mention that particular thing. So the challenge actually is that we've got, when we talk about marketing, we've got retail audits, we've got household panels, then we've got various studies actually, then we've got in isolation when we do digital marketing, then there's a separate set of analytics, then you come on to e-commerce, and then there are different data sources actually which are available, then of course your own aspect of data which has been accumulated from years and years of actually doing study. The unfortunate problem actually is that there's not a single currency or a single platform. So the future will be all about actually using this data and tying this together into an algorithm or artificial intelligence basically which does the analysis for you and basically pushes the data to you. So that's what I meant by it's no longer going to be about pulling data, but rather actually about pushing data. So leadership actually has to evolve as well. Even for myself actually, I think the whole aspect of reskilling myself or maybe even upskilling my own skill set actually becomes very necessary. I think there was some various interesting books and topics which have talked about redundancy and becoming irrelevant. I think that is a very harsh reality actually that we are facing. So as we come out right now actually, incidentally, आप सब लोगों ने देखा होगा कि पूरी दुनिया is in a turmoil. There are economic challenges everywhere. So this is really coming about from a demand and supply imbalance, which obviously is going to take quite a bit of time to actually settle down. But once it settles down, we will see a lot of good companies go bankrupt, a lot of new companies actually become very large, and a lot of new interesting avenues opening up which will foster even newer companies to take advantage of these particular things. So strategy actually becomes the most important aspect of how we are going to be using data actually to carve out directions or niches in terms of taking the company forward and obviously recognizing and converting those opportunities which exist. So let's talk about the whole aspect of upskilling and reskilling over here. देखें, मैंने एक मेंशन आपको ये किया था पहले कि बिजनेस जो है वो इज़ नो लॉन्गर एज यूजुअल. ठीक है, आप जिस तरह काम करते थे अब वो काम जो है वो बेसिकली मीनिंगलेस है, क्योंकि जो पैराडाइम है, जो होल इकोसिस्टम अराउंड यू इज़ गोइंग टू चेंज, हैज़ चेंज्ड एंड इज़ कंटिन्यूसली चेंजिंग. Change was always there, I mean even prior to COVID, but I think COVID has ushered in a whole new era. I actually look at this COVID era as a catalyst actually. So a lot of stuff actually it has sped up, a lot of inefficiencies it has actually exposed, and it is forcing you to basically upskill and reskill. So given the importance of this particular aspect, I would strongly urge that ICAP actually forces people to even start thinking about this kind of a paradigm and starts developing resources from a strategic viewpoint as well. So it's not all about mechanics. It's not all about having the right technology or the servers or the databases or the ERPs or the other AI tools. It's all about how in the future you're going to harness all of the thing together, which ultimately leads to more efficient decision making. So I will just stop over here at that particular aspect, because most of the stuff as far as the reason why and how the data analytics are being used in other organizations has been covered, and without repeating it once again, I would just like to leave you with this one thought, and that thought is all about, given the present circumstances and the way the future is evolving, you need to reskill and upskill before you become irrelevant. Think about that. Thank you.